Then a certain Brahmin approached the Lord and exchanged greetings with him. When they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, he sat down to one side and said to the Lord, Master Gautama, is there one thing which, when developed and cultivated, can accomplish both kinds of good, the good pertaining to the present life and the good pertaining to the future life? There is such a thing, Brahman. And what is it? It is alertfulness. Just as Brahman, the footprints of all animals that walk fit into the footprint of the elephant. And the elephant's footprint is declared to be foremost among them with respect to size. So too alertfulness is the one thing that, when developed and cultivated, can accomplish both kinds of good, the good pertaining to the present life and the good pertaining to the future life. Just as all the rafters of a peaked house lean toward the roof peak, slope toward the roof peak, converge upon the roof peak, and the roof peak is declared to be foremost among them, so too alertfulness is the one thing that can accomplish both kinds of good. Just as a reed cutter, having cut a bunch of reeds, grabs them by the top, shakes the bottom, shakes the two sides, and beats them, so too alertfulness is the one thing that can accomplish both kinds of good. Just as, when the stalk of a bunch of mangoes is cut, all the mangoes attached to the stalk follow along with it, so too alertfulness is the one thing that can accomplish both kinds of good. Just as all petty princes are the vassals of a wheel-turning monarch, and the wheel-turning monarch is declared to be foremost among them, so too alertfulness is the one thing that can accomplish both kinds of good. Just as the radiance of all the stars does not amount to a 16th part of the radiance of the moon, and the radiance of the moon is declared to be foremost among them, so too alertfulness is the one thing that can accomplish both kinds of good. This, Brahman, is the one thing which, when developed and cultivated, can accomplish both kinds of good, the good pertaining to the present life and the good pertaining to the future life. Excellent, Master Gautama. Let Master Gautama consider me a lay follower who from today has gone for refuge for life. Dhammika. On one occasion the Lord was dwelling in Rajagaha on Mount Vulture Peak. On that occasion the Venerable Dhammika was the resident monk in his native district, in all the 7 monasteries in his native district. There the Venerable Dhammika insulted visiting bhikkhus, reviled them, harmed them, attacked them, and scolded them, and then those visiting bhikkhus left. They did not settle down but vacated the monastery. Then it occurred to the lay followers of the native district, "We serve the sangha of bhikkhus with robes, alms food, lodgings, and medicines and provisions for the sick, but the visiting bhikkhus leave. They do not settle down but vacate the monastery. Why is that so?" Then it occurred to them, "This Venerable Dhammika insults visiting bhikkhus, reviles them, harms them, attacks them, and scolds them, and then those visiting bhikkhus leave. They do not settle down but vacate the monastery. Let's banish the Venerable Dhammika." Then the lay followers went to the Venerable Dhammika and said to him, "Bhante, leave this monastery. You've stayed here long enough." The Venerable Dhammika then went from that monastery to another one, where again he insulted visiting bhikkhus, reviled them, harmed them, attacked them, and scolded them. And then those visiting bhikkhus left. They did not settle down but vacated the monastery. Then it occurred to the lay followers, all as above, and said to him, "Bhante, leave this monastery. You've stayed here long enough." Then the Venerable Dhammika went from that monastery to still another one, where again he insulted visiting bhikkhus. They did not settle down but vacated the monastery. Then it occurred to the lay followers, "We serve the sangha of bhikkhus with robes, alms food, lodgings, and medicines and provisions for the sick, but the visiting bhikkhus leave. They do not settle down but vacate the monastery. Why is that so? Then it occurred to the lay followers. This venerable Dhammika insults visiting bhikkhus. They do not settle down but vacate the monastery. Let's banish the venerable Dhammika from all the 7 monasteries in the native district. Then the lay followers of the native district went to the venerable Dhammika and said to him, Bhante, depart from all the 7 monasteries in the native district. The venerable Dhammika then thought, I am banished by the lay followers from all 7 monasteries here. Where shall I go? It then occurred to him, let me go to the Lord. Then the venerable Dhammika took his bowl and robe and left for Rajagaha. Gradually he reached Rajagaha, and then went to Mount Vulture Peak, where he approached the Lord, paid homage to him, and sat down to one side. The Lord then asked him, Where are you coming from? Brahmin Dhammika? Bhante, the lay followers of my native district have banished me from all 7 monasteries there. Enough, Brahmin Dhammika. Now that you've come to me, why be concerned that you have been banished from those places? In the past, Brahmin Dhammika, some seafaring merchants set out to sea in a ship, taking along a land-spotting bird. When the ship had still not caught sight of land, they released the bird. It went to the east, the west, the north, the south, upward, and to the intermediate directions. If it saw land anywhere, it went straight for it. But if it didn't see land, it returned to the ship. In the same way, when you have been banished from those places, you've come to me. In the past, Brahmin Dhammika, King Kauravya had a royal banyan tree named, Well-Grounded, which had 5 branches. Cast a cool shade, and gave delight. Its canopy extended for 12 yojanas. Its network of roots for 5 yojanas. Its fruits were as large as cooking pots and as sweet as pure honey. The king and his harem made use of one section of the tree. The army used another section, the town folk and country folk used still another, ascetics and Brahmins used still another, and the beasts and birds used still another. No one guarded the tree's fruits, yet no one took another's fruits. Then, Brahmin Dhammika, a certain man ate as much as he wanted of the tree's fruits, broke off a branch, and left. It occurred to the devta who lived in the tree. It's astounding and amazing how evil this man is. He ate as much as he wanted of the tree's fruits, broke off a branch, and left. Let me see to it that in the future the royal banyan tree does not yield fruit. Then in the future the royal banyan tree did not yield fruit. Thereupon King Kauravya approached Sakka, the ruler of the Devas, and said to him, Listen, respected sir, you should know that the royal banyan tree does not yield fruit. Then Sakka, the ruler of the Devas, performed a feat of psychic potency such that a violent rainstorm came and twisted and uprooted the royal banyan tree. Then, Brahmin Dhammika, the devta that lived in the tree, stood to one side, sad and miserable, weeping with a tearful face. Sakka approached this devta and said, Why, devta, do you stand to one side, sad and miserable, weeping with a tearful face? It is, sir, because a violent rainstorm came and twisted and uprooted my dwelling. But, devta, were you following the duty of a tree when the violent rainstorm came and twisted and uprooted your dwelling? But how, sir, does a tree follow the duty of a tree? Here, devta, those who need roots take its roots. Those who need bark take its bark. Those who need leaves take its leaves. Those who need flowers take its flowers. And those who need fruit take its fruit. Yet because of this the devta does not become displeased or discontent. That's how a tree follows the duty of a tree. Sir, I wasn't following the duty of a tree when the violent rainstorm came and twisted and uprooted my dwelling. If, Devta, you would follow the duty of a tree, your dwelling might return to its former state. I will, sir, follow the duty of a tree. Let my dwelling be as before. Then, Brahmin Dhammika, Sakka the ruler of the Devas performed such a feat of psychic potency that a violent rainstorm came and turned upright the royal banyan tree and its roots were covered with bark. So too, Brahmin Dhammika, were you following the duty of an ascetic when the lay followers of the native district banished you from all 7 monasteries? But how, Bhante, does an ascetic follow the duty of an ascetic? Here, Brahmin Dhammika, an ascetic does not insult one who insults him, does not scold one who scolds him, and does not argue with one who argues with him. That is how an ascetic follows the duty of an ascetic. Bhante, I wasn't following the duty of an ascetic when the lay followers banished me from all 7 monasteries. In the past, Brahmin Dhammika, there was a teacher named Sanetta, the founder of a spiritual sect, one without lust for sensual pleasures. The teacher Sanetta had many hundreds of disciples, taught a dharma to his disciples for compan on ship with the Brahma world. When he was teaching such a dharma, those who did not place confidence in him were, with the breakup of the body, after death, reborn in the plane of misery, in a bad destination, in the lower world, in hell. But those who placed confidence in him were reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. In the past, there was a teacher named Muggapaka, a teacher named Aranami, a teacher named Kudalaka, a teacher named Hathapala, a teacher named Jotapala, the founder of a spiritual sect, one without lust for sensual pleasures. When he was teaching such a dharma, those who did not place confidence in him were, with the breakup of the body, after death, reborn in the plane of misery, in a bad destination, in the lower world, in hell. But those who placed confidence in him were reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. What do you think, Brahmin Dhammika? These 6 teachers were founders of spiritual sects, men without lust for sensual pleasures who had retinues of many hundreds of disciples. If, with a mind of hatred, one had insulted and reviled them and their communities of disciples, wouldn't one have generated much demerit? Yes, Bhante. If, with a mind of hatred, one had insulted and reviled these 6 teachers together with their communities of disciples, one would have generated much demerit. But if, with a mind of hatred, one reviles and insults a single person accomplished in view, one generates even more demerit. For what reason? I say, Brahmin Dhammika, there is no injury against outsiders like that against your fellow monks. Therefore, Brahmin Dhammika, you should train yourself thus. We will not let hatred arise in our minds toward our fellow monks. Thus, Brahmin Dhammika, should you train yourself. Sanetta, Muggapaka, the Brahmin Aranami, Kudalaka, and Hathapala, the Brahmin youth, were teachers. And Jotapala known as Govinda, the chaplain of 7 kings. These were harmless ones in the past. 6 teachers possessed of fame, unspoiled, liberated by compassion. These men had transcended the fetter of sensuality. Having expunged sensual lust, they were reborn in the Brahma world. Their disciples too, numbering many hundreds, were unspoiled, liberated in compassion. Men who had transcended the fetter of sensuality. Having expunged sensual lust, they were reborn in the Brahma world. That man who, with thoughts of hatred, reviles these outside seers devoid of lust, was self-absorbed, generates abundant demerit. But the man who, with thoughts of hatred, reviles a disciple of the Buddha. A bhikkhu accomplished in view generates even more demerit. One should not attack a holy person, one who has abandoned viewpoints. This one is called the seventh person of the Sangha of noble ones, one not devoid of lust for sensual pleasures, whose 5 faculties are weak. Faith, mindfulness, energy, equanimity, and insight. If one attacks such a bhikkhu, one first harms oneself. Then, having harmed oneself, one afterward harms the other. When one protects oneself, the other person is also protected. Therefore one should protect oneself. The wise person is always unhurt. The second 50. VI. The Great Chapter. Pali versions, Pali English version and Pali